Get this going. Okay, yeah, it's on now. So what, can you state your name again?
My name's Stephen Houlahan.
Okay.
Stephenhoulahan.
Great, thanks. So, and did you say you were, when you were speaking there, that you were a former director?
I'm a former Santee City Council member.
Oh, city council member, okay. And is your property or potentially affected by this, or you?
No.
Okay. So
I
what's
pay
your?
my water bill, it's very high.
Okay, it's very high, yeah.
I conserve water a great deal, but it's still high.
Yeah. Oh, so what is your reaction to what just happened in there?
I believe that the board has made a bad decision, and I believe that some of their statements were misleading. Saying that there was $1 million lost because of this action is actually very misleading. Maybe the fact that they were unable to collect late fees during the pandemic might have led to that larger sum of money. I don't know, I didn't do that investigation. But when we're talking about maybe 20 people or maybe 24 people that could have their water cut off who maybe owe upwards of $800 to $1,000, the math doesn't really work. And so I don't believe it's a massive subsidy in any way. I believe it is a human right, and possibly some of those 24 homeowners, or if they're renters, may have children, may have other issues, may have lost their job, may have been sick, may be elderly, but there might be some other reason. And so although I believe that they probably have done everything to reach out to them, but there's likely some reason why those individuals cannot pay. And so I believe it'd be best for the board to pursue state money and try to remedy their financial issues that way than to use a heavy hand, like I had mentioned, to put a lien on someone's property. And maybe they're already under a lot of stress anyway.
What about the claim, and they made it at the last meeting too on July 7th, that the law 218 and maybe 26 requires them to do that? As a former council member, have you ever, I couldn't find anything in 218 that speaks to that even. And now they say on the website that it's because they're a nonprofit, they can't do that. But the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, public agency, has programs for this kind of situation. Have you ever heard, you know anything about that or how that?
I can't say that I'm that well informed, but as a former city council member, I know that there are always ways to remedy these situations that don't include necessarily cutting off someone's water. And so they're going to just have to work harder, and they'll have to look towards that state money. And so I believe the best thing to do is to exhaust all of the other avenues before you go and put liens on properties, before you consider cutting off the water to somebody. And so although I appreciate the efforts of the staff for doing their job, I believe that the board needs to step up and they need to find creative solutions, and that's the sort of thing as a former city council member I have done, and I'm actually running for Congress, and so is what I expect to be the future congressional representative of this area. Then I'm going to try to do my best to make sure that these people at risk are protected.
Now, the last meeting, the finance person in there actually said it's not really, or seemed to be saying it's not really $1.5 million, which is what they were. It comes out to about $525,000, and then there's a hunk of that. About half of that is from like a very small. I think that was from 20 people or something. So it's kind of unclear. How was, and I didn't. Did you understand? I did not understand how she was explaining it there, that they're losing $1 million. Did you understand that?
I think there was a certain degree of extrapolation where comparing it to a speeding ticket, and so maybe they've worked into their business model that certain people just can't pay, and so then when they can't pay, then they get an additional bill, which again compounds the whole issue of them not being able to afford their water. This is probably some of the most expensive water rates anywhere in the nation. Padre Dam does not actually have any water rights. And so every bit of water has to be purchased except for what can be recycled. And so I know there's a big plan for recycling water. And so what it is basically Padre Dam's a developer. And so they want to develop additional infrastructure and build their business. So I
Like
think
Alpine.
exactly,
Yeah.
like Flint Springs, Alpine, etc. And so that's subsidized by the ratepayers, myself, as a ratepayer.
So San Diego County in general has the highest water rates in the country and even in the state. What, in your view, makes these rates so much higher than other places?
Well, a lot of it is unfettered sprawl development, and so we know there just isn't enough water to go around. And if you drive around this town and you drive around California 50, you'll see that many people have allowed their lawns to go fallow, and so to be dirt. I've done the same. I've replaced my lawn in the front yard with xeriscaping, rocks, low water, plants that don't need a lot of water, etc. And my water rates are actually higher than they were before I did that. And so our water rates keep going up. And so again, they can say they're not for profit, but they're still a business. They definitely are, and they run it like a business. They said it last week, they're a business.
But it's a government agency.
It is a government agency, but I still believe water is a basic human right, and we need to make sure that people have water, and make sure that the children are tended for, that the elderly are cared for, and so the best way to do that is to look towards the state and to make those arguments. I don't think it's a matter of bravado from the dais to say that I just have to do it. They didn't have to do it.
So, since you brought it up on the issue of the cost of water, the Water Authority in June passed a budget to increase the cost, the charge that they have for imported water to its member agencies by about 6%. So right now it's up around, for treated water, around $1,800 an acre foot. So that's, and then about 16, I believe it was, or 17 now for untreated. And so now that's about a $500 or $600 markup more than, say, in Orange County, what the retail agencies charge for as an add-on to the metropolitan imported water. Why is that? I'm asking you because you talked about the high price here. So what do you think of that?
I think it's bad management. I think that the board has traditionally raised the price whenever they can. The water prices are higher than ever. When we conserve, then they use the same exact argument that now they're not making enough money, and they raise the price then too. And so whether we use the water, then we get a high price. If we conserve, then they need to make up the shortfall. So it's nice to have a beautiful park like we have here with the Santee Lakes. I come here often. It's been here since the 70s. It's an excellent, or probably since the 60s. But part of their model has been to expand and to develop. And so the problem is they want to capture more market share. And so in order to do that, they charge higher prices to the ratepayers. And then that's how they are able to increase their footprint to make their business larger.
And what's your opinion on the desal plant in Carlsbad? And the prices there are depending on if you're in Orange County or here, about 2 to 4 times the cost of imported water.
It is extremely expensive. It's a great backup plan. I think Camp Pendleton also has a desal.
Or they don't have it, but it's a proposal that's floating.
So
yeah.
Probably it's a good plan for worst case scenario. It's very energy. It takes a lot of energy to make it happen. Salt and water are 2 of the most caustic substances, so it destroys things. So it's high operation expense. And we also are looking at a huge shortage of imported water. We're looking at water rights being diminished for Arizona and Nevada. And so we basically have an unsustainable model at this point. And we have unfettered sprawl development planned. And so it's just bad government all around. There was no water shortage when I was a kid because there's far fewer of us here.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like that phenomenon, build it and they will come.
Yeah.
And so if we continue to build out into the hills, build on every square inch, and do these things without really good planning, then we're going to continue to suffer. And
So water usage has actually gone down, not just per capita, but the overall has been going down. And
fascinating enough, but it costs more.
Yeah, it costs more.
I know I use a lot less of it than I ever did.
Yeah. And there's these new projects now, also because of the recent lawsuit that the Water Authority won. It could actually get 100,000 acre feet from Metropolitan for about half the price or less than the desal, for example. Then you have various water purification, potable recycling things, Oceanside, San Diego, and here now. And we have more water in Southern California than ever now, and despite the drought. So what's
We have more people than ever.
And more people than ever. So are these going to become stranded assets, or how are we going to deal with this? And they want to keep having more and more water. So and like you said, more and more development. What's the real? Where does this all end?
Well, I got to say, where it does end, at least as a former city council member, was bringing term limits to that council. I think that's a good way. So you start moving people out of these government offices, getting people who are more able to understand the plights, the trials and tribulations of the common man on the board, say for the Padre Dam board, people stepping up and running for office. I think also as a former city council member, I saw a lot of bad planning. So I brought forth a law, which was a general plan protection initiative, so that basically we locked in the general plan. And these are the sorts of things that we need people to step up and start participating in government. And so as long as people don't participate, these sorts of things are going to continue to happen. We're going to have people that are going to make things up in the dais, and they're just going to say, well, this is what I believe, and this is a fact. And I watched it happen for years as a city council member. I watched members of the body I was part of just make up their own facts and believe whatever they wanted to believe. And it could be mostly seated in fantasy. So they said today they're not a business. They said they're a not-for-profit. That's what they said they were a business, and they need to make the money. So which is it? And it's nothing personal, but I am a ratepayer, and I do pay a very high rate for water, and I use less water than ever. Half the time I got to fight with my kid, who's 11, to get him to go take a shower, and then on the other side I'm thinking, well, maybe it's going to save me, it might save me a few pennies. So, we've been reduced to being dirt farmers out here. It also hurts our property value. So there was a comment saying, well, we have the highest property, our property value's gone up the most ever. But guess what happened in 2008? Property value went down. So what can go up can come down, but the water rates never come down.
Right.
So that's where we find ourselves. And desal, it seems like a great idea, but it's very energy inefficient. It's very expensive. It's a huge capital expenditure. So I do support the use of reclaimed water because basically all of our water is recycled. There's not a drop of water that comes down the Colorado River that didn't go in and out of another municipality. Let's just face it. So it's all recycled in some manner or form.
Yeah.
So, but right now we're looking at Lake Mead, Lake Powell at the lowest levels they've ever been. Huge bathtub rings around. We're looking at wildfires, etc., all across Northern California, Oregon, the whole Pacific Northwest. So it is serious, and we're looking at a situation of water wars, fighting with, I'm sure in Arizona they're not happy to kind of be at the end of the spigot, and Nevada as well. California has a higher level of water rights than both of those states, but other states have already made it very clear that they don't want to provide a water pipeline for their water to us. And again, that'd be a huge capital expense. So it goes back to just good planning. It goes back to ending sprawl development and not allowing that. And again, sprawl development is just bad all around. And so, we have to protect our general plans. We have to start cycling through the politicians. They need to go. We need new people, we need new ideas, we need fresh ideas, not people that have been there so long that they age us, and everyone just has to accept.
And there's
that they
two
age us.
or three of them, two of them that are up in 2022. Is that when your election for your
2022,
primary?
that's right.
So what district are you running in exactly?
California District 50
50?
for the U.S. House of Representatives.
Are you running as a Democrat, Republican, or independent? Democrat? Okay, all right, great. Well, I want to thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And you have